Imagine growing up under the shadow of the swastika, in a land consumed by hatred, where the very color of your skin marked you as an outsider in Hitler's terrifying Reich. This is the gripping true story of Hans Massaquoi, a boy of mixed race who navigated the treacherous landscape of Nazi Germany, a place infamous for its brutal human rights abuses and deadly concentration camps like Auschwitz. Though the Nazis primarily targeted Jewish and Roma people for extermination, the few black people in Germany found themselves in a precarious and often perilous position. Hans-Jürgen Massaquoi arrived into this world in Hamburg, Germany in 1926, a stark contrast to the blonde-haired, blue-eyed ideal of the Nazi regime. His mother, Bertha Bayetz, was a German nurse, while his father, Alhaj Massaquoi, was a prince from the distant African nation of Liberia. Alhaj was studying law in Dublin when Hans was born, with plans for a future marriage to Bertha. Bertha even lived with her future father-in-law, King Mamalu, a Western-educated and remarkably progressive leader who became the first ethnically African diplomat in Germany. King Mamalu, who had embraced a more Western lifestyle after years of tribal tradition, welcomed Bertha and young Hans into his home with his wife, Rachel Johnson, and their children. However, their privileged existence offered only a temporary shield. The fate of other mixed-race children in Germany, known as the Rhineland Bastards, served as a chilling reminder of the dangers lurking beneath the surface. Born to German mothers and Afro-French soldiers who occupied Western Germany after World War I, these children and their mothers faced public shock, disgust, and the vicious sting of racist propaganda that painted black men as rapists. While most of these relationships were consensual, the societal backlash was venomous, leaving many mothers ostracized and children abandoned. Tragedy struck when Alhaj abandoned Bertha and Hans, never returning to Germany. Though King Mamalu was incensed and offered support, Bertha, a woman of fierce independence, chose to raise Hans on her own, moving them to a humble attic apartment in a working-class neighborhood. Here, the stark reality of Hans's difference began to manifest. While he found friendship with local boys, the venom of racial prejudice soon reared its ugly head. At school, Hans endured relentless bullying, taunted with a deeply offensive racist rhyme and cruel remarks about his skin and mother. Desperate to belong, the young Hans, barely 7 years old, naively asked his babysitter to sew a swastika patch onto his sweater, a desperate plea to his tormentors that he was one of them, a German. His mother, horrified, swiftly removed the hateful symbol, explaining their family's rejection of the Nazi ideology. Yet, like many children, Hans yearned for acceptance. In 1935, when Hans was 9, the chilling reality of the Nuremberg laws descended upon Germany, legally forbidding marriage or sexual relations between Aryans and non-Aryans, a category that chillingly included Jews, Roma, and black people like Hans. Classified as non-Aryan, Hans was now a legal pariah in his own country. His mother tried to shield him, but the constant stares, whispers, and the daily barrage of the dehumanizing N-word made the bitter truth inescapable. Hans desperately wanted to fit in, tragically willing to conform to the very ideology that deemed him inferior. He sat alongside his German classmates, indoctrinated with tales of Hitler as a savior and Germany as the world's greatest nation. The allure of the Hitler Youth, with their smart uniforms and seemingly exciting activities, was strong for a boy craving belonging. But when the day came for the 10-year-old boys to officially join, Hans's name was never called. Standing alone as the last boy in the yard, the crushing humiliation of his exclusion based solely on his race was a profound and painful blow. Even a direct attempt to enlist at the Hitler Youth Office was met with cold rejection. He was a non-Aryan. The Nazis even cruelly declared his local playground off-limits to non-Aryan children. A flicker of pride ignited within Hans in 1936 when the African-American runner Jesse Owens triumphed at the Berlin Olympics, delivering a stunning blow to the Nazi myth of Aryan supremacy. This victory allowed Hans to walk a little taller that summer amidst his peers. As Hans entered his teenage years, the danger he faced intensified. though he was unknowingly spared the worst horrors inflicted upon other marginalized groups. While the Nazis prioritized the extermination of Jews and Roma, the small population of Afro-Germans did not initially receive the same level of focused extermination. However, the pseudoscientific pronouncements of figures like Dr. Wolfgang Abbe, who declared mixed-race children genetically inferior and a threat to the Aryan race, cast a dark shadow. Abe advocated for the forced sterilization of all mixed-race people in Germany. Tragically, many Afro and Asian Germans were indeed seized by the SS and subjected to irreversible sterilization surgeries. Hans Massaquoi narrowly escaped this horrific fate, his lineage as a prince affording him a fragile shield of diplomatic consideration. Despite being a full German citizen, the suffocating grip of Nazi law extinguished any hope of a meaningful future for Hans. Barred from higher education, his dreams of becoming an engineer were shattered. His attempt to enlist in the German army was met with blunt refusal due to his race. Even the basic right to work and earn a living was denied to non-Aryans. Yet, in this bleak landscape, a local blacksmith offered him an apprenticeship, a small act of kindness that provided a glimmer of hope. Even this modest opportunity was fraught with peril. When Hans sought a work assignment, an SS officer acknowledged his skill but offered only a future promise of employment in a Nazi-controlled African colony, revealing the disturbing colonial ambitions of the regime. A brief and clandestine romance with a white girl, the daughter of an SS officer, placed Hans in mortal danger. Their secret meetings in the forbidden world of American swing music nightclubs, music banned by the Nazis, were a reckless act of defiance. One fateful evening, he was apprehended by the police, accused not only of violating the Nuremberg laws against race defilement, Rassenschande, but also falsely accused of attempted mugging. This crime alone could have landed him in a concentration camp, a place of unimaginable horror and death. Only the timely recognition and vouching of a local police officer spared him from this terrifying fate, forcing him to end the perilous relationship. During the war, the Nazis maintained a stark racial hierarchy even among prisoners of war, subjecting African soldiers to brutal treatment and torture in separate camps known as Les Frontstalags. Ironically, Hans's rejection from the German army became a blessing, saving him from the moral stain of participating in Nazi atrocities. As Allied bombs rained down on Germany, Hans and his mother were forced into hiding, their lives constantly at risk. In the aftermath of the near destruction of Hamburg, they found refuge with the family of Ralph Giordano, a half-Jewish acquaintance who understood the desperate need for sanctuary. When the war finally ended in 1945, Hans and his mother were left with nothing. His talent for playing the saxophone provided a lifeline, securing him work, playing jazz and swing music for American soldiers, the very music once forbidden, now sustaining them. The arrival of Black American soldiers brought a new wave of mixed-race births, echoing the era of the Rhineland bastards, and highlighting the persistent racism in post-war Germany, where many mothers relinquished their children to orphanages. In 1948, Hans finally met his father in Liberia, only to discover a man far from the idealized image his mother had painted. Despite the offer of a royal future, Hans yearned for something more. He emigrated to the United States, serving as a paratrooper in the Korean War despite not yet being a citizen, before finally pursuing his education and a successful career in journalism, eventually becoming an editor at Ebony magazine. Only in retirement did he finally share his extraordinary story in his autobiography, Destined to Witness Growing Up Black in Nazi Germany, a powerful testament to survival against unimaginable odds. His life, a stark reminder of the insidious nature of racial prejudice and the courage required to endure it, concluded in 2013. Hans Massaquoi's journey through the heart of Nazi darkness stands as a dramatic and crucial historical account.